Thank you very much. I am the final member of the friends and colleagues and family of John to rise to speak with you this afternoon. And thank you, in closing, for coming for this memorial service for John. As Danny pointed out earlier, this is one of a number of such memorial services, that actually the sixth for John. And the first was held immediately 7 days after his accident on his birthday, on October 4th, among the staff and the board members of the John Mack Center in Cambridge. The second was held shortly thereafter, the second and third, on November 13th, one in London that Danny was in attendance at, and the other at Harvard, at the Harvard Memorial Church in the Yard, where he was remembered by his colleagues at Harvard. Later, on December 4th, there was a meeting in Hollywood, back down in Beverly Hills, actually in Malibu, where the celebrities that knew John, in his incarnation basically as a celebrity in our country because of all of his work. And most recently in New York City, there was another memorial service because of his being so well known as a peace activist. And so here we come together for the sixth and final of these memorial services, the people that are connected with the Institute of Noetic Science and the people who knew John very much as a spiritual being. And most people, of course, only get to have one memorial service for themselves. And as we know, many of our brothers and sisters in the human family never get any, such as the victims of the tsunami that we've recently witnessed, the people who were the victims of the mass killings in Iraq recently, the people who are the many millions who die of AIDS in Africa, and the people who perished beneath the bombs of our country in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, who had mass graves and no memorial services. But people like John Mack get to have a number of such memorial services because people like John have many facets, like a true jewel that he was. And these many facets reflect back to us in the human family. They reflect back to us our world in its many facets. And therefore, John Mack became, like one before him, actually a prince of our present disorder. And he reflected many faces to us, of the many faces of our world. He was, of course, the faithful son of his mother, Ruth, right to the very end of her life, which occurred fairly shortly before John's, where he took care of her, attended to her affairs in New York. He was, of course, a helpful brother to Mary Lee, his sister. He was a husband, a father, a lover. He was the father of Daniel and Kenneth and Tony, and the grandfather of Ari. He, of course, was also had manifestation, as we all know, as a scholar and a biographer of T.E. Lawrence that has come up any number of times today. That other prince of our disorder of those days, and in whose service, actually, John was still performing in the very last days of his life, when he had gone to England, to Oxford, to present the lectures that he was doing there, and that he, like T.E. Lawrence, of whom he was talking, was struck down in a bizarre and rather prosaic way, in the way that Lawrence had been killed in a motorcycle accident, a prosaic motorcycle accident after spending all of those many years in high danger in the deserts and many wars. John was struck down by a mundane drunk driver on the streets of England. like by a car that came out of nowhere, just as the cart did that came across the path of Lawrence and led to his death, and strikes us as a mystery and a strange, bizarre ending for such a great and extraordinary person. So he also, of course, was a medical doctor and a psychiatrist who was dedicated to helping our human family deal with the confusion of our consciousness and our incarnation and our confusion on this plane as incarnated consciousness, dealing with the puzzlement of our spiritual emergence in this material plane. And he was, of course, a tenured professor at Harvard University and the longtime chairman of Harvard's Department of Clinical Psychology. And he, in fact, of course, as most of us came to know him, was the professor at Harvard University of Psychiatry who, in fact, was open to the reality of this experience of UFO contacts and the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence. And many of us thought that that was the crowning jewel of his whole existence, but as many of us who knew him well realized in the latter years before his untimely and strange demise, he in fact had turned his attention to this extraordinary question of the extra-dimensionality of being and the potential communication with those who have passed beyond this material plane. And so here we are today, gathered together, much like that strange opening scene in the Lawrence of Arabia movie that John had seen so many times and was often asked about, where people gathered together to share their memories of this great man, this great multifaceted person. In that movie, the ceremony was at Westminster Abbey. And T.E. Lawrence's biographer was there, many of his commanders in the military, many of his comrades in arms. And at that time, too, many of the people there considered him to be a great man, as people do John. Yet many people remembered T.E. Lawrence, always thought of him as a traitor to his class, a person who had somehow betrayed his special education and upbringing by attempting to share with people of a more common belief system his education, his talents, his abilities to help the world. And so we come now to share our final closing and our farewell to John at this incarnational level, and to understand that we, in fact, have to appreciate that we have come together not to say goodbye to John, but to understand that John is off once again on his field research into this final area, that we know that he is going to bring information to us, he's going to find more information to us, and we know that like all memorial services, like this for John, for T.E. Lawrence, that memorial services are not only for remembering this person, but for also assisting friends and family to deal with this ultimate confusion that occurs in the moment of the passing of a deep-loved being. The confusion that we have in the face of the grief and the sadness that we encounter, but at the same time the joy and the hope that he now knows the answers to many of those most fundamental questions that had afflicted him in his life and afflict us still to this day. And that we, in fact, have to understand that we know, unlike many other people in ceremonies like this, that our loved one is actively researching this fundamental final question that we're all afflicted with as we gather here today. You know, what exactly happens to us after this? And do we, in fact, ever actually have a reward for the kind of work that John did in this world? And I close with the understanding that I believe that John now knows the answer to that burning question, and that we need to understand that that question is, how can we most effectively take our belief in this great unknown that surrounds us and bring it into actual practice to help our sisters and brothers in this world, so that in closing we will end up knowing that the ultimate answer to this mystery may be that if we can in fact bring love to our world so that this many people will gather in that final farewell to us in this incarnation and actually harbor in their hearts as much love as we do today for John Mack, that we may understand that the ultimate answer to the ultimate mystery is that that love that we leave behind is in fact the very answer to the ultimate mystery that John explored in his life with us. Thank you very, very much. Goodbye to John, and hello to John.